Heyo.
Yo, here we are. We're back again. It's your boy, Greg McDaniel. Oh,
Wait,
no, it's not.
dude, come on.
What? That's the second time I had to do this, right? So we're recording again. Greg is under the weather. If you heard our last episode with Gail, you know that Greg was not feeling good last night. We're doing this interview with John B back to back. And so Greg is not here again for some odd reason. Nick thinks he wants me to take the lead. I think that's flagrant. He should be taking the lead, but whatever. It is what it is.
I'm putting it on you. The most handsome man in the world.
I thought that was Andrew Tate.
No, not anymore. He's behind bars, I think. Still
Behind bars.
Yes,
Sure. I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. Well, listen, today we have John Buoninfante from Westchester, New York, not Westchester, Pennsylvania, as we talked about prior to this show. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. So we're going to be talking follow-up, database, ninja tricks, systems, 13-step programs. So what you said, 13-step programs?
13 groups. Yep.
Yeah. AA, all that stuff.
I was going to say, sounds a little bit like Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a little bit better. That's a 12-step program. This is the
12-step. This is the 13-step.
This is the 13-step. Got it. All right. So, listen, let's jump right into it. John, why don't you first tell us how I screwed up your last name? Number one, how do you really say it? Number two, what do you do for a living?
It's John Buoninfante, and I sell real estate. I'm a real estate associate broker. I'm at Real Broker. So I used to do a lot of expires and FSBOs with guy Greg's really good friends with Aaron Wittenstein. And as I grew my career, I started transitioning to my database. And as I transitioned to my database, I developed in my previous company a training where you're calling your whole entire database in one quarter. So you break them up into 13 groups, which ends up being, I use the same system that they have. Like A and W is one group, B and E is another group, CK is another group, and you get these 13 groups, right? So let's just say B and E, you got that group and you're calling them for a week. I would be the B and E group because my last name is Buoninfante. So let's say if it was A and W and I was calling Aaron Wittenstein because his name is in a W. So each week I'm calling people with those last names, 2 separate letters, so I can call my entire database in one quarter, which allows me to talk to them, text them, DM them, or have some form of engagement for a quarter. So I could do it 4 times a year.
Yeah. All right. So now that I'm so glad I heard that a second time. When you first said that pre-show, I was trying to figure out what the heck the combinations were. That makes sense. So if you're in the A and E group, you have a last name of A, or your last name starts with E, right? Yeah. So those are the folks you're calling. 26 weeks divided by 2 is 13.
Yeah, 26 letters in the alphabet.
But it wouldn't be. Is it A and Z?
No, for me it's A and W, but this can adjust depending on your culture.
Yeah, so the idea behind the whole thing is that here's a systematic approach to where you're just not going all the way down your database from A to Z, and Z is always the last person to get called, and A is always the first person to get called. You create these groups, and then that gives you a way to logically randomize, I guess, or systematically randomize the people who you're calling, and then always call them at different points, so it doesn't feel like, oh, the second Tuesday of every 4 weeks, I get a call from John. Like, big surprise. He's just prospecting me, right?
Yeah,
it becomes more natural and just more fun for you who's actually doing the process, right?
Yeah. And you could even future pace them. So if I'm talking to you today in February, I can be like, hey, listen, it's really awesome to connect with you, Nick. Hey, listen, I want to connect with you towards late spring. I'll just shoot you a call then. Does that work for you? And then maybe, just connect with them in that way. Kind of let them know you'll stay in touch. You get to the point where you become friends with them. That's the idea, is to really become friends with the people that you're working with. So you're really adding value. And when you're adding value to these many people's lives, then that's the most important thing. And then business will come. So it's not just like lead generating. It's just giving value, maybe letting them know what their house is worth in spite of selling it. If they don't want to sell it, who cares? But at least you're providing value. They see you in the business and they see that you're active and you care about them, and they'll come to you.
So real quick, you said something. I think I caught it because we were kind of stepping on each other there. You said you can mix and match the last names depending on your culture. Is that what you said? So explain that to me.
Okay, so for example, A and W for me is perfect, right? Because I don't have that many people with the last name W. Okay, this is more importantly, I always throw a Y and a Z. with there. Now, if you're a nationality that there may be a bunch of people in your database that potentially, like say Asian, where Z is not an uncommon last name, that might be a letter group in and of itself, right? So for me, I kind of realize as I'm going through my letter groups, these two letters do belong, right? Because if it's A, I got a lot, and W, I have less, then it kind of breaks it down. But if you start to realize that you might have way too much in one group and not enough in another group, then you could kind of rename your group depending on kind of the last names, if that makes sense. So as you're developing your own database, you'll pivot, make certain changes so that you have relatively the same amount of contacts every week. Does that make sense?
You're averaging it out. So being with the name Buoninfante being as Irish as it is, what do you find are your biggest groups? This is just kind of an off the cuff, and obviously I was kidding about the Irish part, right?
Well, I tell you what, vowels are a big one for me because I'm Italian. So I have a lot of vowels in my database. So A and W is a big group. B and E, I always find A, W, B, E, C, K, and D are really big groups. I find that the week when I do I, Q, and Y, Z are really weak weeks. So that's why I join them together. SU for me, when I know that I'm coming through the SU, that's another letter group. I know that's going to be a quick week, an easy week when it comes to it. When I know it's A and W, I know I got to kind of that week, I got about 10 more contacts in that group. So I got to hit it a little harder. So that's what I was talking about, getting to know your groups. And sometimes you have to adjust the letter groups.
Yeah. So sometimes, here's a question I would have for you, right? Like, how much time, if you go back over the last, call it 26 weeks, it's called a half a year, right? Mm-hmm. How much time do you think you spend a week on the phone? And what does that equate to per contact, if you have any idea?
I could talk, and that's the problem for me. It's if you get me on the phone and I want to have a conversation and really become part of your life, I'm asking about your family, I'm being genuine. So the biggest challenge for me is to get off the phone. So what I do is I try to have conversations, and even if I could just hit 3 or 4 a day, when I'm aside from the follow-up that I'm doing in my business, I'm not doing 3 or 4 calls a day, no way. But when I come to this aspect of my lead generating, I'll try to speak to 3 or 4, and then I'll throw like 3 or 4 DMs, a couple of text messages, and then as they're engaging back, that sets up the week. And then what that tends to happen is you start to realize, okay, you know what? I'm not going to call that person this week. I spoke to them 6 months ago. We're always DMing. I could call them another time. And you start to realize, you know what? That person who I've been neglecting more needs to get a phone call. And then you start to realize some of them, I could just shoot a quick DM. And if you want business from some of them, you could just shoot a quick DM and say, hey, you know anybody looking to buy or sell? Once you have a strong relationship, you get to say that.
Yeah.
So it really everything is about the relationship. So to answer your question, you really should have it to be 10 to 15 minutes of conversation.
10 to 15, nice and tight. Nice and tight.
Yeah,
so I have to ask a really stupid question that every agent wants to know always, that doesn't matter one lick, which is, what CRM are you using to go through your database and do all of this?
That doesn't matter one lick is right, because I used commands with my old company.
Yep.
I use Mojo as a dialer. Okay. I have those groups in Mojo.
Yep.
And now that I'm with Real, I use it in Chime, and nothing changes.
Yep.
It's exactly the same throughout the database. So if I have to move brokerages, I just have to make sure those groups are somewhere else. And so that's why I keep them out of Mojo into a secondary database. And I don't do that just for moving brokerages. I like to have, just in case one crashes, I'm in another place. Just as a backup database.
I have to ask, everybody asks, there's always usually one question on a show like this when you talk about stuff like this. But my question is more on the tactful or tactical side, not tactful side. Mm-hmm. What are the conversations? Do you have scripts for the conversations? You said you're natural. You said that you come from a place of value and it's hard for you to get off the phone. But do you have a framework or a sequence of questions that you ask everybody? What does that look like when you're actually in the conversation?
Well, I always have a lot of notes. I always have so when I'm in my CRM and I call them, I always have notes in front of me so that I can write down important events that I should know about them, And so there's the Ford conversation that was developed a long time ago, and a lot of different companies that are training, say that they had it. But me and Greg were talking yesterday on how long that's been out. So essentially, you really want to get to know each other in certain aspects of life, and you want to know about their family, and they know about your family. So you kind of connecting with them, and that could take these relationships could really take 18 months to really get tight. You know, earlier on it could be a little awkward, but when you get to know someone, having at least 6 to 8 meaningful conversations over the 3 years, over the 18 months, is you want to definitely talk about family, share things about your family, talk about each other's job. Right. A lot of people ask me about real estate, and I don't even inherently that just happens because they get to know me. Yeah. So they'll talk about real estate when I ask them about their job. So staying in contact with that, then I'll talk about the recreational, you know, with things that I like to do in my personal life, get to know them and what they like to do in their personal life. And then always their dreams, which is kind of like, what do they want in the future? Because that's my items of value. If I know what their dreams are, then I say, what about their dreams that I could help? Some things you're never going to help. Yeah. But if you can help them achieve some of the things that are most important to their future, that's a really meaningful way to connect with a person. So rather than script, I try to just have those elements in there and be purposeful about writing important notes so that I can remember them and just stay in their life.
I bet you get invited to a lot of parties. You're talking to many people.
The other day, it was so funny. I was lead generating, and my past client in my DTD2 list calls me up. Yeah. And he's like, you want to come over and have a drink? I'm like, no, I'm making calls right now. And then I just thought for a moment, I was like, my database is calling me. Yeah. I'm hanging up the phone and I'm going to have a drink. That's it. So yeah, it becomes like that. And you forget that that's your database because you try to become so friendly with people. I certain people in my when I do deals with them, we really connect. I stay with them after. And, the friendships are so important, and DTD2 helps you accomplish that, or any calling system, and whatever you want to call it.
Consistency, though. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Consistency and being a person and a human, and not going, hey, it's John. Do you want to sell your house? Right? Like, that's probably the worst.
Right. Yeah, interest rates just went down a tick. You could let me connect you with my loan officer for a refi.
I know. Yeah, I noticed we haven't talked to each other since high school, but did you know that you can refi?
Yeah.
So that's it then. So you make one phone call every 13 weeks and you're done. That's all there is.
Yeah, and I make sure I connect with them. And then inherently conversations happen. They're like, John, what's going on with the market? Oh, wow, it was crazy over the past 3 years. I know you didn't do nothing. And this is a real conversation. I'm not doing this to get business. You probably made like 50 or 100,000. Did you realize that? No, let me send you something to let you know what the houses are going for in your neighborhood. Yeah. And, they like that. And it's legitimate because they did make $100,000 over the past 3 years. Now, I wouldn't do that if their market crashed, but
stay away from that. Hey, really your house is worth half the value? Let me tell you some details.
I wouldn't do that.
So, and when I was kind of joking when I said that to you a minute ago, because I know we talked pre-show a little bit, and you were like, it's not just about the phone calls, it's about the follow-up, right? So it's about the social. It's about, so kind of get into a little bit. It's not so first of all, I got to say this. I am better than most at this, and I'm not very good at it, which is keeping notes in my CRM and in my contacts about people, right? Like I'll have random goofy notes where somebody will say to me, where did we meet? And I'll go, we met at an Applebee's in 2004. You were with your brother, because I happen to have at that time. It's not on everybody. Yeah. But there's a specialty to doing that, right? Do you have any tips or tricks on keeping really good notes? Because I will say, I know for a fact, like, if I get a phone call from anyone in the world and they start with, hey, how's Gina? She's a senior in high school, right? You got me, dude, because I know you were listening to me. You're hitting me where the most important things are, right? That's my daughter, my 17-year-old senior. So and you could talk about, and Izzy was 3 years younger, right? So she's got to be a freshman. Like, to me, if I haven't talked to you in a year and that comes out of your mouth first, you now have my attention, right? So any tips or tricks you can get with getting those notes? First of all, how do you get the notes in the database? Like, do you have, obviously I hope you're not typing while you're on the phone with people.
I am.
Oh, you are? So you must be good at that. I'd be terrible at that.
Yeah, no, because I'll get a little bit just to kind of go back. So it's like, I have a bad memory in terms of that. So if I'm like, if it's an earlier one and I'm developing the relationship, I have to wait till I feel comfortable to talk to them about their family, because you got to kind of wait. And I also kind of wait till if I'm developing a relationship, like, when do they start talking about their family? It really has a lot to do with it, because it could be a stranger or it could be somebody who you kind of gel with quicker. But you got to find the right moment to talk about your family or someone else's family, because that is a sensitive topic. But what I like to do is I say, how's the family? And if they say their name, I do a quick type.
Yep.
So like a couple of trigger words so that when I get off the phone, I could fill in the sentences and write the notes. But there's a couple of things I might need that I know I'll need, because if I hang up, I'll forget. So names are a big one. And then maybe I'll go into the call knowing what don't I have, what do I need, and things like that. And I may know someone good enough at that point where they're a past client, and then, we just shoot the breeze and I don't take notes. But until I know someone's family well, someone I'm going to remain into a relationship with, I need to get those notes every once in a while, because I'm the type that does forget.
Yeah.
Nick, how are you with that kind of stuff? Like when it comes to following up with past clients, and you're unique though, because you have two sort of, you're a marketing guy first, right? But you also have that real estate background too. So how are you with that stuff?
I automate most of it, and I don't do a really good job of like actually calling people. Now, calling is one thing. I do a very good job of communicating with people through text and messenger. So maybe that is my generation, if you will. Anybody who accepts. So I guess I'll put it this way. If we've done business before and I see that you like that form of communication, I'm all over it, because that's my form of communication.
Mm-hmm.
So the video messages, the text messages, the messenger, the Instagram DMs, like more social for me and the people that I actually keep in touch with that way than traditional phone calls, actual calling. Like I'm the kind of person that will text you and say, hey, you got 5 minutes to hop on a call before I just call you.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess maybe that's more, and people appreciate that, but I also don't, and I've done the, back when I had my shingle at that red company, we did do that dual database thing. We're putting in groups of letters, and it does work. And the Ford methodology works for sure. So I love all of that. But what I found, and I'll say this, is if you're listening to this show wanting to get tips from John, you've got some amazing tips. But what I will tell you is no matter what John says or what you think is great, if you actually implement and do something for yourself, you're going to change it for yourself. You're going to make your own system, right? So use John as an example for like a base, but don't get ready to get ready. We all get ready to get ready. And then we listen to a show like this and we're like, oh, I should do this. And Gene does that. And Nick does this. And, I just gave you an excuse to only do Facebook Messenger. So some people will listen to what I just said and go, oh, I'm only going to do Facebook Messenger because that's what Nick said. That's not what I said, but that's what I do the most. Shame on me for not actually calling more. But you have to make it work for you. So whatever's working for you, whatever system you have, just be consistent with that system. Yep. John's very consistent with the Ford relationship methodology and the groupings of the words, and that is fantastic. And I absolutely love that. We just interviewed Gail an hour ago or last week, depending on when you're listening to the show, and all she does is send 3 send out cards every single day, and that's her thing. She's 100%. I'm going to go on social media. I'm going to find somebody that triggered something that I thought was great, and I'm going to send it in a send out card. And every day she's having conversations with people based on the mailers through send out cards that she's sending. That's a system that works for her. She's been doing it for what'd she say, like 12 years or something crazy, Gene?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So don't, my advice, if listening to this, is don't get ready to get ready. Don't like, oh my God, I didn't hear exactly the specific thing that John does at this specific time. Just do the thing and you'll come up with your own system. Right.
That's right.
Yeah, I like that. So John, I want to talk to you about some of the other tactics and tools that you use in addition to the calling system, right? So I'm gonna see how to say this. Pre-show again, you went through a couple different things, connecting with them on social and doing these other things, right? Is there another? All right, if I said that you can't make phone calls anymore, that's it. You're done. You're out. No more phone calls. The end. The phone doesn't exist.
Yeah.
What's your second go-to best method of getting in these folks' spheres?
Can I text or no?
Yeah, you can text. Would that be your second one? Calls first?
Well, no, I would. It would be social actually first, but because I would be looking at my letter group, right? So if I have this letter group, my kind of go-to would be, okay, turn my notifications on for each one of those people if they have an Instagram profile.
Yeah.
That way I get notified anytime they post something. And even if it's an off week, if I'm sitting there scrolling on Instagram, I could just connect with them, and I know I'm connecting with my database.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm deliberately kind of you took away my ability to make a phone call, I'm going to decide what generation is this person in? What's their preferred method? Do they like texting? Are they on Facebook? And are they on Instagram? And I find that those are different people, very different people.
Yeah.
Right. So I sometimes if I have the relationship, I just want the reminder there. So I would connect with them in the DM or in the messenger. And there's times where I don't get these meaningful phone calls during the week I have the group. It's because I'm finding that person likes to engage more on social media.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean I'm going to always call every person in that group. So I would default to then just going, if they don't have any social platforms, it would be text. And then I would go to their preferred social platform. The reason why I want them on my social platform is because a lot of this is about being top of mind, right? The most important thing is to have mind share, that when they think of a realtor, they think of you, right? So I want them in my algorithm, right? So if I'm DMing them and having conversations, like if this week, say if I'm on SU and Nick, I'm DMing you, then you're going to start to see my content.
Right. Yeah. Great, right? Great tactic.
Yeah, because we're engaging. So now my content's going to get in front of you. So the whole idea of mind share, if I can get you in my stories or if I can get you in my reels, now I'm killing you with reminders on who I am. So it definitely doesn't stop at calls. It's actually filtering out now into social media.
Yeah.
And getting them in my algorithm is actually more of a priority to me now than actually always calling them, because it's becomes more of a marketing based approach in addition to a lead generation approach.
Yeah. Are you shooting videos and stuff or personal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm on Instagram.
Yeah.
John,
that's interesting to me because and Nick knows this about me, John. We just met recently, so like you probably don't know this, but the phone gives me anxiety, and I think that part of the reason that the phone gives me anxiety is because I'm a lot like you, in that I don't shut up. Right? Yeah. If you and I are talking, it's not that I don't like talking to people. I actually love talking to people. My girls and my wife will say I like talking to people too much because it holds me up through my daily activities. Mm-hmm. But if I get on the phone, it's never a, hey, how you doing? Right? Like, Johnny, good to talk to you, bud. How's the family? Good. All right, yeah, I'll talk to you next week. It's more like I kick my shoes off, my feet are up, and an hour and a half later, I'm like, listen, bro, I got to go. Dinner's on, right? Yeah. So I would be making one phone call a day if I'm lucky. So I think that gives me anxiety, right? But I would be your perfect candidate for a text. I love when Nick texts me and says, yo, I need something. You got 3 seconds. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead, call me. If we can't text it, call. Can't stand the phone. It drives me crazy. And I probably would be just so much better at my business if I did some of those things, just picked up the phone. It's gotta treat you super well, obviously.
Well, I mean, yeah, it does. It just becomes part of everything. I think it ends up becomes part of everything about you. You're contacting them, but then again, everyone's got some form of social. So when you combine the two, that's where I think it really is. Because again, I still don't think in the world we're in right now, as opposed to 10 years ago, 4 phone calls would have been a big deal 10 years ago. Yeah. But people just are constantly seeing stuff all the time and they're forgetting. And so when you get to add the social element in there, and then they're seeing you more than 4 times a year, that's what really makes this whole system really strong, is because it's about engagement every way. And this system of calling people is basically a social system.
Yeah. Yep. But I love obviously John is very proactive on the phones, right? He has a system. He has 2 systems. He has a framework system for what he talks about, and he has an actual lead gen system of what groups of people he's talking to. So 2 proven systems on the phone. Add social to it. There's so many people that we see that are frustrated with social media because they post something and it doesn't get seen. And yet when you ask them what activities they're doing on social media, they go, I don't like Facebook. I don't like Instagram. I'm never on it. But you expect to post one video and for that to go viral and every one of your friends to see it. It's not going to happen. So like the same tactics and the same energy that you put behind getting a database and making a list and making the calls, just like what John said, interact with people on social media, follow them, put notifications on, send them a DM, a personal message, comment on their post. Like the more you do that and train that muscle, that will serve you just as good too, because now you are making people, like John said, putting yourself in their algorithm, which is powerful.
Yeah. And one mistake I see realtors make is they really go for follower. Let's just take IG. They really go for a big follower base, which is really unnecessary. You know, most realtors could get a good couple of hundred people as followers really quick, most people. And if you can get 500 people and you can get 20% of those people looking at you and you got 100 people, that's a significant amount of business you can get from one lead funnel.
Right.
So agents could take this on right away, which is kind of nurturing that small piece of people that engage. So it's like, okay, if I got 6 likes on my picture, that's not bad. Now I'm going to engage with 6 people.
Right.
And so it's about being proactive with when you're posting something as something, but people think is small and they're looking at other likes or 300, whatever it is, big numbers, they get discouraged. Meanwhile, you just need those small things. You could have an extremely well business with 500 followers and you engaging on social because you're maintaining the relationship, as opposed to having 20,000 followers from who knows where.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good point.
I was gonna say, our buddy Kyle Draper was on the other day, and him and me go back and forth on this all the time, saying the same thing. Like, you get 100 views on a video and you're upset, but if I called John and I said, "Hey John, I got 100 potential sellers that want to go into a room with you and you do a presentation, can you fly to Tampa to do it?" You'd be here in a heartbeat.
Yep.
For 100 people in a room.
Yep.
And yet we get 100 views on a video on social media or a post, and we're like, "Oh man, I'm nobody. Like, nobody's paying attention to me." It's so you do have to frame it. A view as a person, right?
Yeah.
And you can build and cultivate relationships. So I love all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think too, what John's doing, which I like, is that, I think most humans love to talk about themselves. When they love to talk about their kids, they love to talk. I mean, not like, "Hey, look, I'm the greatest," but if you ask me something about my wife or my kids, I'm all about it. Right.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the psychology behind that is when I'm not with John after a phone call, like say John called me Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
And I'm somewhere Saturday and people are like, let's say I go meet Coach Jeff Bannon.
Yeah.
Right. And Jeff's like, "Yo, I heard you met my boy John." And I go, "That's a great dude." Right. Like, he creates a raving fan by actually engaging me in something other than what it is. I mean, Nick, you and I talk about this all the time. At the end of every show, what do I say? You can't find me. I'm not selling my services to you. When I call you, it's not what I do. If you need my help in any facet of life, I'm here for you. Right. And sometimes that includes marketing. Sometimes that includes real estate. That's fine. But for the most part, this is about, I try to get to know as many people as possible. My 14-year-old asked me yesterday if I was popular in high school. And I said, popular is a weird word today, but I knew everyone and everyone knew me. I would say not everybody loved me, but I was running with all the crowds. Everyone knew who I was. And now everyone knows that I can help them. And that always helps my bottom line. So the fact that you're creating that relationship piece of it with people is incredible.
Yep.
Nick,
good stuff.
Where do we go? Like, I want to say, what are the next steps in this, the follow-up, right? So is there anything else? I didn't hear you say anything about direct mailers. I didn't hear you say send out cards. There was nothing about shopping carts and or billboards. Is there anything else we're missing in your system? Because let me say this real quick. When I started my marketing agency, I was always going for the dude, you're everywhere. And what that was I realized one day where I was on a bunch of different things and I ran into somebody outside and they went, "Dude, you are everywhere." And at first I was like, "Oh man, that must be annoying." And then I'm like, "Wait a minute, I'm in marketing. That's exactly what I want." Right.
Yeah.
So we're always going for when people call me and they go, "This dude said to me today, dude, you're everywhere." I know we're winning. Right. So you're talking about social, you're talking about phone calls, you're talking about text. Here's a video on my YouTube, all these things. Where else are you hitting these folks in your sphere that make them go, "Dude, you're everywhere"?
Well, I've had that, I send my stuff, my YouTube videos to my database so they see it. Again, when they see me everywhere, people, I post to TikTok and I'm not that much in it, but people see it. They see my name. So like you said, I post to every single platform and I've had people say, "Dude, you're everywhere. Like, you're all over the place. I see you on all your social profiles." But so I do that. But another piece that I like to do that I'd like to say is a combination of marketing and lead generating, which is really powerful. I had people say it was the best thing I got for Christmas, was a video that just said, "Hey, this is John. And I'll tell them something. I hope. Let me get an example. I hope your daughter's doing well after she broke her arm. I hope you guys are having an awesome year. I know you bought a house 3 years ago. I hope it's well. Whatever is going on in their life, and I hit send for Christmas, and they love that. I do that between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I also try to do stuff like that for their birthday. So I try to stay in video in their text messages if they're the kind of type of people that like that type of stuff. But I sent out over hundreds of videos on Christmas, and I got a really, really good feedback on it. So it was the best thing they got instead of a Christmas card.
I love that little personal touch, right?
Yeah,
Like it's
it's a
so
big deal.
much different.
Yeah.
The video is just like, I feel like I was there with you, right? So it's almost like we got through that next level of like, oh, that was so cool of him to reach out to me. That was really neat. But it's a little bit more than that. It's like that on steroids, because I'm like, I was there with him. It was almost like we were talking, but not quite.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great move, dude. I love that. I love the YouTube videos that you put the link up and you shoot that canned video to people, like just as many times as you can physically be in their face. They if they like you, right? Like I know, John, you're probably like me, right? I'm Italian. I talk with my hands. Yeah. And I think there's probably some people out there that don't necessarily like that. And so if you get to see me on video talking to you about your daughter's broken arm, you're probably like, I don't know about this guy. But
you're supposed to be more trustworthy if you talk with your hands.
Oh, I talk with my hands.
Listen,
you see people on stage like public speakers. So when I went to public speak, I've been to trainings before. And it's like you're forced to talk with your hands. And the good public speakers not only talk with their hands, but then they're using the reverse mind map. So like knowing like what you said earlier, Gene, to my left or my right, like so, and everything they do when they're telling a story, they're moving on stage from left to right because that's a natural progression. But for them, it's right to left. Like so, there's all kinds of little tricks there. But definitely talking with your hands is a big bonus. So I would encourage that.
And you know what else is what they say is makes people most trustworthy too is the ones that use the F-bomb the most.
Yeah.
So those two things together make me the most trustworthy man on the planet.
Most trustworthy man alive.
Greg is the most trustworthy then.
Yeah. He doesn't. No, I think I got him beat because of my hand motions. He doesn't talk with his hands.
Oh, really?
I
do.
Yeah. So I have the two of those. And honestly, it's funny. It's like when we're on this show, I usually keep the F-bombs to a minimum roar. Like I probably don't say the F-bomb on the show. But if you're in my world, I'm like, what time's fucking dinner?
Yeah, lighten it up. Lighten it up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's stupid. It's like just part of my vernacular. And
I go right back to the locker room. Like it's 100%. At my house, no, there's no swearing in my house. My wife is very like anti. I don't know if it's like a education thing, like using foul language is like you're less than educated or whatever. I don't know what it is, but she's like so anti cuss word. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I go out with my boys and it's like the release button, like someone popped the
So you almost got to let it go. So listen, John, I'm going to watch John's face. My wife is Sicilian, so you can probably guess that there's some F-bombs coming out of her mouth.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, and they're usually directed directly at me. But I can tell you, my kids don't curse. They never have. They're and I've never seen them slip. Like people go, you don't know when you're not there. I feel pretty comfortable. They don't. They may say the S word every once in a blue moon, but they just have never cursed. So I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Well. So now, John, when you call me next week, we're going to talk about, hey, have you heard your daughter's cursing at all?
I heard my son last night.
You hear him typing his notes right now on us?
That's great. That's great. Well, what did we miss here? Like, is there anything that we did miss? Because I think this was a powerful, quick episode.
Yeah.
But I don't want to leave anybody hanging. I mean, if we could, let's close with this. If you could leave people with a final thought, what would be the most important takeaway you could give to, I'll say, a new agent getting into the business, but really anybody doing it, even if you're just looking to level up? Is there anything that you could tell us that they could take away from this very quickly and activate immediately?
As simple as thing is become friends with people. As simple as that, because like what you guys were doing with talking about cursing, what that essentially is doing is it's taking down the wall. I could trust this guy. He's not just some realtor or some salesman that's trying to give me anything. So, like I used the Ford conversation, and that's when you get deeper. But you said if I was a new agent, I would just say, call everybody in your phone, talk to anybody on your phone, DM them, just get in their life, become friends, and gather their information, their name, their email address, their number, and learn to stay in contact with them. And they're gonna talk to you about real estate. Especially the first conversation, if you're new, is, "Hey, what's up, Gene? Did you know I became a real estate agent?" And you tell them about that. And then when you call them next, they're gonna say, "Oh, how's real estate?" So call everybody as soon as you become an agent and tell them how excited you are that you became a realtor. So that's always a good way to start building a database, because your money's in your phone. So I would tell any new agent, grab your phone. You probably got 500 people in there at least. Just start engaging, whether it's text, phone, or whatever it is that you do. Stay friends with people. If you see them on Instagram and they're not realtors marketing, but if they're just regular people, then learn what's important about them and engage with them. But the most important thing is to be authentic. If you don't like someone, then don't put them in the world, because they'll know that. So don't put them in the database. Don't work with people you don't like. I know that sounds weird. Everybody wants to work with everybody, but put your attention to your tribe, to the people that you can attract, and that they connect with you. Because as you're building that, you're building more meaningful conversations, a more meaningful business, and a happier business, because you're working with people that like you and trust that you're going to help them with one of the hardest decisions they're ever going to make.
That's a brilliant way to close it down, Nick.
Love it.
That was really good, John. This was great, dude. I would say right now, if people want to get on that list where John's calling them, well, how do they get in touch with you?
You could just Google my name. I'm everywhere. But
there you go.
I'd say Google my name. Google my name, everything should come up.
I kind of feel like we're going to need to spell this for folks that are just listening.
It's for Instagram. We could start there. That'd be a great spot. It would be John.Buoninfante, B as in boy, U-O-N as in Nancy, I-N as in Nancy, F as in Frank, A-N-T-E. So John.Buoninfante, John obviously with an H. And you could DM me right there, follow me, and I'd be happy to connect with you.
And I think, Nick, I'm going to leave this on you, but when you put the videos and the audios out there, you'll spell his name properly in the description.
I hope so.
That red thing's not showing right now. They don't see that?
No. Well, they will on the video on YouTube, but if they're listening to it on Apple Podcast or something, they're going to have to seek it out. So we just want to make sure they can get you if they want to talk to you on the phone. So
that'd be awesome. Yeah, they could reach out to me by phone too.
John, it was awesome talking to you, dude. Thanks for being here with us today. Nick, any last thoughts?
No, I love it. Everything he does, follow a system, be consistent, make it your own. But then John reinforced something that we say on this show all the time, which is the best real estate agents have the most friends.
Yeah.
That's a great, I got nothing. I'm going to take this away. Listen, we appreciate everybody here, and we're going to say, I'm going to use Greg's thing. Peace out, ninjas. We go.
All right.
There you go.